Hi everyone. Hi everyone, and welcome to Huddle in Place with the Nine-Sided Circle. I believe today is Thursday. What is it? April 16th. And we are on our 24th episode of Huddle in Place. I am one of your hosts, Noor Kyle, in Los Angeles.
And I am the other one of your hosts, Mushtaq Ali, in the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm. And also
in the Sonoran Desert today.
Yes, with cactus friends.
With cactus friends.
Joining us for a talk. Yeah. With his head in the clouds, too.
Yes.
Look at that. So, today, in light of the current global situation we find ourselves in, we wanted to share with you some of the precepts from our spiritual tradition, the lineage that Mushtaq and I are part of. And it's interesting to me, I find, that as relevant as these are to the moment we find ourselves in, these are things that have been milling in, relatively underground spiritual traditions for 1,000 years plus now, and probably much longer than that. So it's just fascinating for us to share these things with you in light of the fact that I think they're things that a lot of us either recognize as important today or just already deeply resonate with a lot of us. So, where should we start?
We should start with the first one. Would you like to take that, or shall I?
Well, let's see. The first one is educate women. And as we know, at least in the United States and in a lot of English-speaking nations at this point, education tends to be almost universally co-ed. And even in these nations, we still find that educating women is not always everyone's top priority. We still have a lot of barriers to overcome. And that's not even to begin speaking about nations who are still really in the grassroots work of making education accessible to girls and women as well as boys and men.
Yep. And to understand how radical this concept is, you have to put yourself 1,000 years ago in Central Asia, where women were basically frequently considered chattel who should not be educated at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at a time like this, when people are really entering into survival mode, we are going to see some backtracking in terms of prioritizing the education of women and girls. So that's something we need to be vigilant about. And it's something that we will have to push back against as we start coming out of quarantines and finding ways to get care for children who are depending on mothers who are at home. I mean, of course, fathers may be at home taking care of their children as well, but we've seen, statistically speaking, that these burdens do tend to fall on girls and women. So that'll be an upcoming challenge that we have to face going forward.
Yep. And you can't really have a decent society unless everybody in it is educated.
Correct.
If one half of the society is denied education, you ain't really got a society.
Yeah, everyone suffers because an educated mother is able to be better resourced to care for the rest of the family. These are things that we've seen in research on the issue, and it's just something that I am proud to say is part of our tradition.
Yep. And also consider that the person who could have cured cancer was a girl who grew up in Africa and never learned to read.
Right.
You know, just think about that. That could be the case.
So why not open up all those possibilities?
Yeah.
Yeah. It may be a woman who, gets the ball rolling on the coronavirus treatments or vaccines that we need. So.
Yep. Yes, our next Jonas Salk could be a Joan Salk.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, shall we talk about the next one?
Yes.
I'm happy to read it.
Please do.
Sure. So our next precept of our Sufi tradition is control your eye, your hand, your waist, and your tongue. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, Mushtaq?
Okay, we'll start with controlling your eye. Um, there's a very famous hadith. A hadith is a tradition of the Prophet Muhammad. He and a young cousin were walking through the streets of Medina, and a beautiful young woman stopped and asked him a question. And the Prophet was answering, and he kept noticing that his cousin was staring at the girl because she was so pretty. And so the Prophet reached over, grabbed his head, and turned it away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he didn't tell the girl to cover up. He didn't say, you must hide yourself in your house. He told his cousin to not look inappropriately.
Yeah. And what we mean by that is, yeah, we can, I'm a person who believes we can freely look at other human beings, but when it comes to our attention, are we looking at them as objects or as fellow human beings? And there's a real difference there.
Yes,
So,
and this goes beyond people. This goes to that car that you really lust after,
yes,
or
so true.
any other thing that you gaze on with a desire that takes you out of yourself.
Yep,
Which is not to say you can't look at something and enjoy it, but it's the quality of that enjoyment.
exactly. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So that's for the eye. For the hand, it is, what are your actions?
Yeah,
That's what is meant by control your hand. Control the actions that you do. Do
right.
not do anything unconsciously. Act in a manner that is appropriate to the moment. Do not be selfish.
Yes.
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
not take more than you need.
To be thoughtful in your actions,
Yes.
to respect the need for consent and for healthy boundaries, all that stuff. Yes.
Yeah. And control your waist.
Yeah.
This is one that people are going to get upset over, this one, because
Yeah.
they'll think, oh my God, they're fat shaming me or something. And
This, I
no, it's
mean,
not
we
that.
want to clarify
Yeah.
that, facetiousness aside, like this is not about that. And we also have to remember that this was a context in which most people were eating, you know, enough to get by rather than necessarily for, enjoyment and things like that. Of course, when they had those opportunities, they would want to take them. But when we talk about that here, we're speaking more metaphorically in the sense of, yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we are speaking metaphorically and we are speaking literally too.
Yeah, yeah.
This precept says, do not take more than you need.
Mm-hmm.
What do you need? Make it that and no more.
Right. Yes.
There are some people out there who are gluttons.
Mm-hmm.
This says, don't be one of those people. Don't be the Roman who goes to the feast and goes off to the vomitorium to puke up what they just ate so that they can eat more.
Oh my goodness, that was a thing, wasn't it?
That was a thing.
Ugh. Yeah. Nope.
So, what do you need? What do you need to sustain yourself? And it's entirely up to you to exert that discipline over yourself. Nobody else is going to do it for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
And that, of
Self-discipline.
all of them today, this is the hardest one, I think.
Yeah, I think particularly in a culture of excess.
In a culture of an excess, and in a culture that provides us with food that has a certain amount of toxicity, when
Mm-hmm.
everything you eat is loaded with sugar, controlling your waist is not the easiest thing in the world to do.
Nope.
And
And I
so,
think you and I relate to that at times. So.
yes, I relate to it all the time. I'm diabetic.
Yeah.
I have to think of that every day.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
consequently,
it's got
Yeah, I am very conscious about what I eat, and I prepare my meals from uh, basic ingredients rather than letting them come out of a package.
Right. So fair enough. Yes.
Yes,
Okay, what's the last bit? That
control your tongue.
is your tongue. Yes. So, especially in a time of high stress, this is going to be extra critical and extra difficult to manage, because we're talking about how we speak to one another, how we say things, and who we say them to. Say more about that.
Yeah, well, we're communicating over the internet a lot these days. And we
Yeah.
all know that the worst place for civil discourse is the internet.
Without those details of feedback, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Without all those vocal and visual cues, it becomes extra difficult. Yeah. So what would be the goal there then?
The goal there would be to, as they say, look before you leap, think before you speak.
Yes, definitely.
Consider your words and the effect that they will have on somebody else.
So important.
Yep. And this isn't something, by the way, just to get back to this is the precepts of our tariqa, our order. It's not something that y'all have to do.
Yeah. This is a sharing.
Yeah.
And if you benefit from it, then we're happy.
Yep.
But at the very least, it's interesting content. So, yeah. Yeah. So the next one is: the greatest book to be read is The Human Being. Learn its alphabet, grammar, and syntax.
So the first part of that is pretty straightforward. You know, human beings are complex, multi-leveled, deep sometimes.
Yep.
And every person has a language. And that language includes the words they speak, but not just the words they speak. That includes how they speak, their inflections, their tones. Excuse me. And it includes their facial expressions, their body language, their unconscious motions. All of these things are part of the book of the human. And it is incumbent upon us to learn that language, learn to be able to read it so that we can intuit the deeper meanings of a person's speech.
And in turn, that deepens our relationships.
Yes.
And our ability to connect with one another in meaningful ways. And to be at peace with one another. And certainly that is a very valuable skill to have right now.
Yes, it's one that we would all benefit from cultivating.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And
Absolutely.
so the last precept we're going to do today, there are 21 of these, by the way, so we aren't going to do them all today.
Nah, we're going to do them in chunks.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. So, our last one is: honesty is the doorway to friendship, and also that which can close that door. Understand the level of honesty a person can endure.
So what do you think about that one, Noor?
Well, I think the previous one leads into this one.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it is so important for us to be as transparent with one another as we healthily can be. And what I mean by that is bottling things up is not a good idea. You know, let's see. honesty being the doorway to friendship means being vulnerable isn't ideal. It's something that we strive toward in a way that feels safe for both us and the other person. And that can be really challenging, especially when we misstep and we miss cues around how to approach a topic in a way that is going to feel safe to both you and the other person. Why don't you say more about this, Mushtaq? About this precept?
So, Jalaluddin Rumi said in the Fihi Mafihi, and I'm paraphrasing here, the Fihi Mafihi was one of the books that he wrote. It's the one that nobody reads because it's prose rather than poetry.
Mm.
And it is, the title means it is what it is. And it's his teachings to his students. And he said to tell somebody a truth that they are unable to hear is as if you were lying to them.
Right, yes.
So you must always speak to the level of a person's development.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Next
and that can be tricky. That can definitely be tricky. Is everything okay?
Everything is fine.
Good.
So yeah.
What might it look like to talk to someone at the level of their ability to connect with what you're saying?
If I talk to a child
that's
about
what came to my mind too.
Illness, I don't talk about bacteria and viruses and contagion and all of that. I have to bring it down to the level that they can understand. Mm-hmm. So I'll talk about bad things in the air that sometimes get on us and make us sick. Yep. And how we can protect ourselves from those bad things by washing.
Yeah.
Yeah, things like that.
That's true, but it's also very simple. Yeah.
Yep. There's a great series on YouTube of various masters in their fields, usually a field of science, explaining something at 5 levels of complexity, starting with a child and working up to somebody who is their peer. So they'll explain physics to a child, and then physics to a high school student, physics to an undergrad, physics to a grad student, then physics to a physicist. Mm. It's very interesting to listen to the same concept being framed in 5 different ways.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. What was I going to say? So yeah, I mean, there's definitely a balance to be made between being forthcoming and painfully honest, and discovering that middle point where you're definitely telling the truth, but you're telling it in a mode that can be received. That's what you really want.
Yeah, if you tell somebody a truth that hurts them so much that they shut down, you might as well have just never said anything.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there you go. 4 of our precepts thus far. And tell us a little bit about, like just a couple words about the tradition that we're part of, if you would.
I would. We are part of a Sufi order that originated about 1,000 years ago, back around the year 1000 in Central Asia, around the area of Bukhara, which is now in Kazakhstan, one of those stans. But Bukhara and Samarkand were like the 2 big centers. And now we call it no such tarika, because according to everybody, we died out. And we like it that way.
Stealthy.
Very stealthy.
So there you have it. And that's what we got for you today. We're doing all right. And tomorrow is Friday, so we will touch base with you then.
Have fun.
Take care.